Talk with Abogado Mas Chingón. We got Anthony Ramirez in the house, an attorney and former police officer. Like, you've got all the knowledge from the inside to the outside. You get to pull it all together. And Damien, 2018, gets arrested. He just was sleeping on the couch. He knew nothing.
Yep.
He was just taking a little night's rest, taking a nap, and all of a sudden he's arrested.
Yep. Maricopa County SWAT was knocking on his door. It's an interesting case. So, in addition to being an attorney, I'm also an Arizona private investigator. That came from me being a private police officer.
Cop.
Okay? A cop.
I need it.
And
we need the music right here. Bad boys, bad boys. What you gonna do?
Damien is from Jamaica. He'd been in the United States for 5 days. He'd been in Arizona for less than 24 hours.
Visiting his friends.
He's visiting his friends who are also Jamaicans.
He knows nothing. He's just taking a little vacation.
He's on the couch. Unbeknownst to him, his buddies, right, his two friends, were out doing drug deals, right? And so what they were doing was shipping marijuana. This was back when it was illegal, from Arizona all over the country using United States mail. Police officers stake out FedEx stores and post office, and they look for shady people mailing stuff, right? They take a dog canine, and they sniff the packages, and they go, oh, look, there's marijuana in there, right? There's cocaine in there, whatever. And they snatch people up, right? They knew what was going on with these guys. But anyway, they waited for them to mail the package. Once they got the package, right, what they did was they arrested them. Got a warrant from a judge to go in and hit the house. And that's a strategy, right? You want to get these guys when they're in custody so they can't go and get rid of stuff, right?
So, but the guy, so the friends are in jail and the guy's
in custody,
and he has no idea.
Yeah,
he's just taking a nap on the couch.
Right? They hit the house, and Damien's in there, and they bring him outside. They arrested him, and so when they went inside the house, they found about 100 pounds of marijuana inside one of the bedrooms. Right? He's from Jamaica, and people infer that Jamaicans like marijuana.
Of course.
A Jamaican guy in a house by himself with 100 pounds of dope.
So they arrest him.
They got their guy. Damien, at the time, wanted to become a U.S. citizen. You get convicted of a felony, you're never going to be a U.S. citizen. He'd been in jail for a long time. He couldn't make bail. And they wouldn't let him out on his word, on his own recognizance, right? Sat in jail. They found me. I get on the case. I start looking, using my law enforcement experience, looking at what the behaviors of what the detectives did on the scene. I'm looking at the evidence, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, Jamaican guy in a house by yourself with 100 pounds of weed, you're screwed. They're offering him a plea agreement that said plead guilty, no prison time.
Wow.
The only jail time that he was going to get was what he'd already done.
But he would never be allowed into the country.
And then he'd have to leave Arizona, right, and go back to where he's coming from. He got convicted. He was going to do 4 to 5 years in prison, okay, minus the time he'd already done.
If he's convicted, then he'll never be able to come back.
Well, he's done, right? Yeah. So he says, no, I'd rather go to prison. I don't want to take the plea. So when I came, I said, okay, well, no DNA in the room for Damien. No fingerprints in the room for Damien. And he'd only been here for 24 hours, right? We had proof that he'd only been in the United States for 5 days. And so I said, okay, let's go with that.
And you won.
Well, we got him a not guilty, right? And so...
So is he back in the U.S.?
Yeah, he lives in New York. Walked him through it. You guys were at FedEx, you arrested these guys. Yes. You hit the house with SWAT. Yes, we did. Great, you came across my client, Damien Williams. Yes, we did. You didn't find any DNA of his in the room with the drugs. No, we didn't. You didn't find any
on him.
Any marijuana. No, he wasn't anywhere near there. Correct. So the only thing that you have is that my client was merely present at the location at the time of the crime.
Okay.
Right. So he said, "Yeah, that's right, but it's a pretty good circumstance, isn't it?" And I just said, "Yeah, it's good."
Circumstance.
So I didn't give it away.
Yeah.
I just said, "Oh, thank you." Kept going. Right. So what I did was, when we were in trial, I had a PowerPoint, and I had remember, this is a deposition, so there's a court reporter, it's a sworn statement.
Sure.
So I put up the law, right, with the definition of mere presence in the Arizona Revised Statutes, and then I put up the detective's words, right, and they were an exact match. What I did was, when I was addressing the jury, I looked at the prosecutor and I said, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I go, Mike, the prosecution's going to get up here and they're going to, have a second bite at the apple and tell you how you should decide. I said, what you need to do is ignore him and listen to the police officer that actually did the investigation. And he's telling you that my client was merely present at the location, right? And so the way that it ended up playing out,
I'm merely present.
right? And so they came back with a not guilty for Damien, right? And it was a really, really good result. We were thrilled. In fact, we were super excited. Afterwards, the detective came up and he said, based on what you've done and the way you presented your case, we're actually structuring the way we do our investigations now because of what you did. So I think I might have messed it up for you criminals out there, but because they're changing their game a little bit, but it was
well,
fun.
Don't be a criminal and don't be there.
So it's one of the things I think that differentiates me from other attorneys, and I'm glad that we're going to be doing this talk show because I'm going to use that experience to, put a creative view on different events as they're happening.